Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Press Break Podcast here on Her Hoop Stats. Of course, I am Chelsea, and I am joined, as always, by Tyler and Jamie. And I was just telling them before we started recording that it's been a week in women's basketball. I was about to say WNBA, but it's not even just WNBA. Women's basketball in general. It has been, it's funny because I was thinking about the last time we recorded last Tuesday and how we were like, there's so much coming. Little did we know, so much more was coming. So we're going to touch on all of it. We're going to take you through the week of women's basketball news, starting a little bit more with the WNBA professional side. And by the end, we're going to preview college games. We're going to talk about some other stuff. So stay tuned for that. But we got to talk first. And again, I'm always going to make it about Canada, but today Canada made it about Canada. Well, this week, Canada.
Not when they were supposed to, but they did.
Oh, man. And I guess it was like the WNBA made it about Canada.
Yeah, the W's going to do what the W's going to do, man.
The next Welcome to the W commercial should be about something leaking.
Yeah.
Because that is integral information to know about. Hey, if you're going to be a WNBA fan, know that something's going to drop when it's not supposed to. Because it happens every single time.
Every time. So here's the timeline of what happened. As someone who is currently, if you are new to our podcast, I'm in Toronto. I live in Toronto. I've been hoping and wishing for this WNBA team. And since it got announced in April, I have just been so excited for it and everything to come. So now, last Tuesday when we recorded, you may have noticed we didn't know anything yet. There wasn't anything out. My knowledge at that point was that the WNBA name was supposed to drop in mid-January, and I had just learned that info, and I was excited about it. I didn't know anything about the name or the drop or anything, but I had just been told mid-January, put it on your calendar, and I was excited. And then, Tuesday night's happening, you're going through your regular social media, and all of a sudden my phone starts blowing up, like messages and all these different things, and I'm like, what is going on? And suddenly I see that someone on the internet was going through the WNBA site, dropped down to see the teams, and what is there but Toronto Tempo?
What a random place to find that.
It's just like, and obviously with the expansion draft, I could understand trying to like go through the teams. And,
probably.
Stuff. So like that makes
sense.
Well,
I would bet money they finalized the name. They notified the W. They went and they said, we are so on top of this. We're going to set all these pages up so that when it's ready, we can publish them. And didn't do the when it's ready part.
My favorite part is that it's on the team rosters. They don't get here till next year.
Yeah.
Why are they on the team roster?
Maybe they were updating the rosters for the
expansion
draft, and so they were just like, well, while we're in here, let's just add the Toronto page.
Anyways.
This is why you need to procrastinate.
Why you need to procrastinate, exactly. And so there's all sorts of theories going on. People say that, Toronto Tempo, which is what was there, was short for temporary. There was so many different theories going on. Yeah. There was, and I knew pretty early on that was the real name. Like, I'm not gonna, but I knew it was the real name. And so Wednesday morning, and we're all like, oh my goodness, like this leak, this sucks. Like just for the main reason of like, this isn't the way that anybody wanted this to happen. Like you don't want it to happen like that. And then we get the other leak on Wednesday, which is the logo. And someone leaks the logo online, and it's another whole thing of everybody reacting to it. And finally, on Thursday morning, bright and early at 7 o'clock Eastern time, the Toronto Tempo officially announces that is their name. They released their colorway and their logo, and is out in the world 6 weeks earlier than it was supposed to be. And that's it. Now we just know that it is the Toronto Tempo. We know their colorway. We know their logo. And yeah, there's just, I know on my end in Toronto, I've been having these conversations all week. It's one of the reasons it's been a week, because it's just been so many things that I was not expecting in my schedule to come up, and lots of, discussions about it. But I'm curious, for two people who don't live in the area, who have not been talking about this all week, who, it's not the biggest news in the city right now, what you think about, let's just start with the name, Toronto Tempo.
I'm going to laugh at them. That's there's gonna be a game where they don't play with tempo, and
That's all.
heaven forbid, it's their actual play style. They better go get the fastest paced coach that you can possibly find. I'm talking. I need like old Phoenix Suns, like 7 seconds or less basketball, or I will be making fun of them. And so that is honestly, and maybe that's more of an indictment on me that's immediately where my mind went. But I mean, it rolls off the tongue fine. Toronto tempo,
You're
got a
saying
little
Toronto
rhyme.
wrong, first of all.
So what am I supposed to do?
You're saying Toronto.
Yeah, no, I was enunciating the tempo.
You're not.
Toronto tempo.
No,
What is
you're
it?
saying
Okay, tell me. You would know better than me.
Toronto.
Toronto.
There you go.
Where's the T?
It doesn't exist.
That's stupid. Anyways, now I hate the name more. But no, honestly,
Toronto Empo.
Yeah, right. Since there's no T's, Orano Empo.
I'm just gonna, I'm
yeah,
kidding.
So it was fine. I mean, just on the name specifically, it doesn't scream like. To be honest, here's I guess my thing, and this, I guess maybe this might be a more general thing about the whole branding is by no means is it necessary for WNBA teams to tie themselves to NBA teams. By no means at all. And the ownership is different for both of these teams, which is an important thing to know. It's not like Minnesota where they're both the same or anything like that. Sparks. Mm-hmm. However, if there was ever not even necessarily a dinosaur name, but if there was ever a colorway, if there was ever an aesthetic that you would want to take from the NBA, it's the Toronto Raptors. They are so cold. And so for me, from that perspective, not even in the sense of tying it in where it's exactly identical, where I'm not asking, for the Toronto Triceratops or anything like that, it don't gotta be nothing like that, but the colorway at least, I'm not gonna lie, I would have been kind of cool with another dinosaur name. I think that would have been kind of cool, but
yeah,
I just at least it's just it's all fine to me at best, to be honest. That's where I'm at.
I'll let you guys say your thoughts and then I'll say my thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, I don't have a lot of thoughts beyond similar as far as the style and what the team name is. I mean, and maybe I'm totally blanking, but I can't think of a lot of professional teams that are named after an aspect of their game. And I think that that's for a reason, because you would feel like you are either having to lean into it or you are setting yourself up for
you will be made fun
jokes
of by me.
And so it's I don't think ideal. I feel and also for branding purposes, it lets you be really broad because you can be a little more abstract, but it's also kind of limiting because you don't have really that kind of built-in tie to some sort of character or concept as much. But I like the logo. I talked about this a little bit on Twitter, but I said, as someone who's super into vintage logos and stuff, I think that that's something they can lean into really heavily. And that's something that's been experiencing a massive resurgence. People are going crazy over, the old starter jackets and things like that, actual vintage ones. And so I think that that would be a really great way to get people engaged and excited about merch and stuff like that. But the name itself falls a little bit flat for me. But it's different, and so I at least do like that much, and maybe they have a great branding package that they're gonna release, because obviously there's so much more that they are going to hopefully be able to release on their own time, in their own way, and so I'm not out on it. It's just not, I think, ideal.
The mascot's just gonna be a blur. It's just tempo.
Yeah,
blur.
Look, as someone who works with Iowa State, who is the Cyclones, whose mascot is a cardinal, look, sometimes you just gotta be creative.
For some reason, OU has a dog that is specific to basketball. So, I don't...
Yeah.
There's no... I don't know. Sky Guy in free agency.
I think the other thing that, a lot of people... Okay.
Sky Guy in free agency.
Sky Guy, but he's just tempo guy.
He's tempo guy. He just runs around.
They just paint dye.
he's just sprinting around the concourse the entire game.
There's a person that does that at Iowa State games. They have a student that goes up with a flag around the upper concourse.
I saw that at the baseball tournament, and I was so confused.
At every basketball game, And
Yes.
first of all, the person biffed it on Sunday. They're okay, but they did biff it. There's a video of it somewhere out there.
Not the injury
Second,
report.
that would be Tempo Guy.
Yes.
Yeah,
We have a farm system for Tempo Guy.
Oh my goodness.
Oh no. Okay, my thing about the name, and the first thing is that there's a few like things that they wanted to accomplish. The first that I guess like obviously Americans aren't really thinking about is that they wanted a name that was the exact same in English that it is in French. And so Tempo is the exact same in English. That was the first thing. For me, because I've been saying it so much this week and we've been talking about it, it's kind of grown on me since the first time I've seen it. Again, it is unique. I do like the alliteration of Toronto and Tempo, like both ending with the O, starting with the T kind of thing. Like I do think that's cool. For me, what really brought it all home was the colors. Like I love the colors. And they're trying to say it's maroon. To me, it's plum. Like a nice plum.
That ain't maroon. Ain't no way. Ain't no way.
It's purple.
It's more purple.
They're trying to like pretend that they're like distancing themselves and not being like in any way similar to the Valkyries, but but
it's plum. Yeah. It's plum. I don't know. I've had this conversation like 17 times this week. It's plum. But the purple and the blue goes really nice together. It's kind of giving, like Jamie was saying, that like vintage vibe of it with like the kind of like not faded or like more muted tones, but to me, that's gonna look really cool on streetwear. And like that's where like people are going with sports merch these days. It's like things that people want to wear that look cool, that aren't just like, you know, like your typical athletic-y looking like merch. And so I like that. For me, the thing with the logo is that it just looks a little bit one-dimensional, and like I don't love that it's being compared to so many different brands, because, you know, then you have other things in the WNBA that are so unique. But like I was having this conversation with someone at the Raptors game the other day, where it's like, if anything can change in a branding package, it's a logo. Like teams change the logo all the time. It's something that's going to grow with trends. You know, and I definitely have heard a lot of the other suggestions for what the name could have been. And to me, like Tempo was the best one that I like heard out of whatever these like finalists might have been. Yeah. So like really hard. Like it's, first of all, they wanted something that was going to be the same in French, or at least be like similar in French.
Valid. Mm-hmm.
They wanted, at first they were really heavy on like something that would kind of represent Canada, and there's different things that could have gone into that. They didn't want something to go with the Raptors just because they wanted to separate themselves. So yeah, it was just, there was a lot of factors to it. And yeah, I'm kind of in the middle in all these debates. There's people online who absolutely hate it. There's people, I haven't seen too many
people online.
Oh my goodness, it's shocking. But yeah, to me, I know it's gonna grow on me, and at the same time, like I'm gonna be there regardless. Like I'm gonna be a fan regardless. Like get me in plum and icy blue. Let's go. Tempo for life. That is my main.
I'm gonna start writing jokes now. I got a year to prepare.
Yeah. See, Tyler's just gonna roast me. Catch us in 2026 when like Tyler's just roasting my team. It's fine. But yeah, that was the biggest thing, at least in my side of the WNBA this week, because again, like things leaked. Then it was a whole joke. Anyways, then we got to the actual planned WNBA event of last week, which was the expansion draft, which to me was just as confusing as we predicted it to be. Like, it was like things were getting leaked beforehand, and then the actual draft was just like 30 minutes on ESPN, where they like talked a bit, and then people just came out and like started reading names. Like it was going
really fast. Yeah,
because it was already all done, so it was literally just the announcements.
Yeah,
but no time to really process it.
Yeah, I was like, there was no preparation. I was like sitting here, and it was funny because my friend was here and she knows nothing about basketball, so we're just, she's asking me questions, whatever, and then they just come out and start reading names, and I'm like, okay, we're starting, I guess. Like, cool. So yeah, then the 11 players were announced, even though we all know they were selected earlier, and some shocking ones. Like I want to get, like, first, I think my biggest shock was Indiana, like not protecting Tammy Fenbegle. Like that was so shocking to me. I definitely did not think they were going to go. And also, I don't think any of our selections from last week actually got selected,
which is crazy. Because I felt pretty confident. First off, we did 9 of them. Like, damn, we 0 for 9.
Yeah, we were 0 for 9. Great job, everyone. Great job. Yeah, I think I'll ask each of you for your biggest shocks, but mine right off the bat was Temi Fembele. I was like,
Yeah.
they didn't protect her? Question mark. Also, great steal for Golden State. So
Yeah.
I called Thornton.
yeah.
Oh yes, you did.
Oh,
That's a good one.
you did. Okay, we're 1 for 9. 1 for 9.
There we go. Yeah, I had a conspiracy theory in mind. I feel like that
Yeah.
shouldn't count, but
And then
regardless,
they just didn't pick anyone from
yeah.
Seattle. And I was
Which
like,
I'm
oh,
not surprised by, but you know,
yeah.
but I mean, I guess I'll kind of lead
Yeah,
off. I guess my biggest surprise to me was who they picked from Minnesota, in Zandalicini. Like that was just not.
Mhm.
I fully expected it to be a forward of some type from Minnesota. Like that just like, and that's not even like. Zandalicini is a very, very solid player. Like, I'm actually very, very excited to see her in this system. That's just not at all what I anticipated.
Yeah.
Especially because there's honestly, I'd say not as much youth maybe as I had anticipated on this roster.
Yeah.
Where like potentially a Diamond Miller could kind of have filled that like that kind of aspect of it a little bit better.
Yeah.
A Dork. I mean, all the players we had talked about, really. Like,
Yeah,
I had
like
fully expected it to be one of the three between Dorka, Diamond, and to a lesser extent, Alyssa Peely.
mhm.
And it just wasn't. And so that was the biggest surprise to me. And then also them not picking a big from Dallas. Now, I like the pick, don't get me wrong. It's just the pure abundance of bigs, especially when their only big is really Ileana Repair, as like a kind of a, more of a true 5 in that way.
Yeah.
So I think
You can kind of see where their plans are going, though, because you can see
Yeah.
that they picked a lot of players that may or may not come over.
Mhm.
All of those international like people that they have the rights to now. But
Mhm.
then you also leave yourself pretty open for free agency that has a lot of bigs in it. And then you have yourself a little bit more open when it comes to the draft. So I do think that they think they're getting one of those players in free agency. Because you think about
Yeah.
Tina Charles is free agent. Alyssa Thomas, Dewana Bonner, like those are all big players.
Mhm.
So
No,
like
100%.
yeah,
And
I have a feeling they're like banking on something like that. Jamie,
yeah.
what do you
I was very intrigued by the strategy. I would be interested to know what kind of conversations were had with some of these players potentially. Again, it's weird because we don't know a lot of details of how this works. And so my assumption would be that you would be able to contact the players if you have the ability to draft them. That is not something I know for a fact, and that is not something I've been able to find for a fact. So, assuming that, I would have to think that some of these players, especially the two players that they picked in Carla Leite and Maria Conde from The Sky and the Wings, would have indicated some interest in coming over potentially in the next year or at least in the next 2 years. I saw a lot of blowback for Dallas not protecting her. I would bet that there was some conversation there as well, as far as, do you intend to come over and play for us? And the answer was no, which I think is valid. So you're giving up rights to people that aren't going to play for you one way or the other. Going with a ton of international players is certainly interesting. It's a good way to get a lot of experience for a little bit cheaper. Julie Van Loo was on my short list as well for the Mystics. I thought that was a tremendous pickup for them. Showed a lot of promise in year one, has obvious like maturity and experience overseas, someone you can build around. And then I think it's interesting that Monique Billings was the unrestricted free agent they picked up. I think that she showed such versatility, and if you want to talk about someone who can go with the flow, someone who can deal with whatever gets thrown at them, someone who gets bounced around rosters like she has, I mean, not even just this year, is certainly someone that fits that bill. And so if you're going to be going through kind of some roster shakeups and maybe some tough times here to start out your franchise, I think that's a great cornerstone. Then the other thing is exactly like you said, you know, free agency is going to be huge. I saw people discussing, well, what's the plan with this group? It's like, well, this isn't the final roster, folks. Like, you notice that almost no one on there has a guaranteed contract. And so they are leaving themselves full flexibility to retain, to cut whoever they want, depending on what fits, and depending on who else they can add. So I think that they got some good building blocks. Veronica Burton, great
Love
grab.
that pick.
And I wondered a little bit about Chechi as well, and so I wasn't shocked when Zane Delicini was announced, but I thought that one of the young ones maybe could have been a good like project for them. But when they start talking about, well, we're gonna shoot a lot of threes, we're gonna run, we're gonna push pace, it was like, oh yeah, that makes sense.
I think to me, like to that point, every player. I think my favorite part about the draft, just in general, is that it feels like they know already what they want their identity to be, which is to that point is fast paced. I feel like you can fit every player into at least one column of shooter or tough. Like I feel like every player is like you're either kind of a dog or like I can't get over like I really think a big part about this season is establishing the culture of Golden State and what that is going to be. And I feel like with Monique Billings and Kayla Thornton, they got two of the best available players in order to do that. And then you're talking about potential free agents that are veterans, whether it be Alyssa Thomas and DB, whether it be Atina Charles, whether it be Aneka Ogumake. Like there's all these different players that have been there, done that, and can come on a 1-year rental before the CBA, experience these brand new facilities that are just for them, especially some of these players, Connecticut that go practice at the YMCA with the community. Like there's a lot to work with here in the sense of establishing the future. Now, there's different strategies to doing that, whether you want to be in the middle. I've already given my take on not wanting to be in the middle on here. Yeah. That's not something I would personally try and do. But even if this is the culture right here, like if it is Kayla Thornton and Monique Billings setting the culture, you are setting yourself up for success. So for those picks alone for that, I love it. And then the rest of the way, it seems like they had a direction with shooting and pace. And if that's what they want to do, it's an interesting shift in the W that we really haven't seen a ton. Obviously, the new coaches coming in are more three-point shooting coaches. I think that'll shift some of the W compared to college. And we saw it last year with Phoenix. There is absolutely a movement to the three-point line happening in the W. It's similar to what we kind of see in the NBA. How will that go? How will that mesh with different styles? Now we got to find out. But if that is their goal, I think they achieved that with this draft. How that will end up after free agency and everything, we'll have to see. But I think for what they were trying to aim for, I feel like they did a good job.
Yeah, I agree. And I do think, they have free agency and they have the draft, which has so many exciting players.
Dominique Malonga, come over. All these overseas players.
Yeah.
Man.
No, I'm very interested in, who will come over. And when they picked Carla Leite, I was like, oh, okay. Like, again, because we thought they were going to pick a big from Dallas. So, I'm very intrigued. And I'm also intrigued, too. The thought I had was like, ooh, do they trade up in the draft? Like, do they try and kind of use some of these things that they have to trade up in the draft? So, speaking of the draft, young players, lots of upside. Let's start talking about college basketball.
Transition?
Beautifully done.
Okay.
One team I know we all wanted to talk about was Notre Dame because they've had a very interesting last few weeks, and they have a huge matchup coming up this week. Hint. But I love when I dress on.
UConn Huskies hoodie for people listening on podcast platforms.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Sorry. I got UConn Huskies. I got this at a thrift store in Toronto. I was very proud of my find. Anyway, so Notre Dame versus UConn, and then. Yeah, it's going to be an interesting game. It was announced today on Tuesday that AZ Fudd suffered a lightly sprained knee, which is good news in the sense that obviously it could always be worse, and also bad news in the sense that, please, basketball gods, give AZ Fudd a break from any of this because that poor girl has just gone through it, and I love seeing her play. I just want to see her play healthy and be okay. So hopefully they're just giving her more time off as more of a precaution than anything. But yes, AZ Fudd will not play against Notre Dame, which sucks.
Right.
But kind of gives Notre Dame a little bit of an edge in that sense because she's one of UConn's best players. But then Notre Dame also has good players. It's a very even matchup that I'm excited for. And I know we've talked about Notre Dame and UConn a lot. So what are we looking forward to when it comes to this game?
I guess for me, UConn's got to get their get back. Hannah Hidalgo last year went to Storrs, Connecticut, and put her feet on the couch and stomped. I've been saying this season. I'll keep saying it. There's no conversation that Hannah Hidalgo doesn't belong in, and that's including the conversation with Paige Beckers and Juju Watkins. And so I'm just intrigued in to this game of that. I mean, honestly, the superstar matchup here, and obviously like with AZ going down, like the big three of Notre Dame is all like their perimeter play is ridiculous. I mean, the stats that they just put up in their last game was nuts. Like all of them, the production they all had at the same time. But I do think, I think Hannah Hidalgo this is a player that has continued just to produce and be on an insane run. But from the UConn perspective, Sarah Strong has come on incredibly these last couple of games, and I think realistically, UConn has the advantage down low right now with the injuries. Like, I mean, it's young players from Notre Dame as well, so it's a lot of. So I'm intrigued in Sarah Strong in this matchup because I do feel like because of how great last year's freshman class was, people are waiting for I guess the dialogue to be the same as last year. And I don't think that Sarah Strong has the quote unquote motion that Juju Watkins does, right? Like that we saw last year, or even Hannah Hidalgo. But from a talent perspective and the immediate production and how it's continues to increase, she's one of them ones. And like people cannot sleep on Sarah Strong, and there's other freshmen too all that go into that list. But like I'm just very excited to see her on a stage like this. Like this is really the first time. Like obviously this is a rivalry game. Like we know the history of this game. Like
Paige Beckers is gonna have like a Paige Beckers night.
That's the. I mean, honestly, that's what I'm kind of waiting for because Paige Beckers has been in a bit of a slump.
A little bit.
Like it's been like I'm not worried about her, but like really, I mean to keep it above, like that's been the case. So now after what Hannah Hidalgo did going to UConn, I'm ready to see what Paige Beckers and also Sarah Strong in her kind of first big moment like this. I'm ready to see the reverse. And what is Paige Beckers going to do when she goes into their house after what happened last year?
Yeah, and I feel like people who are maybe new to the scene maybe think of like the UConn South Carolina like rivalry, but like the UConn Notre Dame rivalry is like a big one.
That one and UConn Tennessee, it's UConn got a whole bunch of enemies. Like
they've just been so consistent.
They have.
Yeah, but like UConn Notre Dame is like on everybody's. They circle it on the calendar every single year. Same with UConn Tennessee, which has always been such a great matchup. But and especially with the talent currently that both Notre Dame and UConn have, like, this is gonna be like a good one. And because of that, because there's those always like ingrained culture things when it comes to these schools. That like both sides, Paige, Hannah, all these people, they're going to want to like give them a show. And it's probably why Hannah went into stores last year and absolutely decided to.
In front of all their alumni. Everyone pulled up to that game. It was feet on couch. It was nasty.
Exactly. So I would not be surprised if Paige went and did the same. And there are a few people on UConn who are,
100. I mean, on both teams, with how stacked these were. I mean, it's with these two programs, it could be anyone any night, really.
I mean, and the thing that I am most intrigued by is we've talked so much about Notre Dame, about their bench, about their lack of depth, about the potential for their depth, but it hasn't been there yet because of those injuries. And so there's not a whole lot out there still on time frames for some of those returns. So I don't necessarily anticipate them adding anyone to the roster or anyone to the available roster for this.
Yes.
That said, they went and beat a very deep, very good Texas team in overtime. Playing 6 people
and stepped on the gas in overtime too. Like they didn't limp their way to the finish line.
Gave up the first bucket of overtime and then finished on a 12-0 run.
Yeah.
So that was Liatu King and Hannah Hidalgo played 45 minutes. Sonia Citron played 43. Olivia Miles played 41, and Kate Koval had some foul trouble, so she only played 35.
Only 35.
So Cass Prosper came in for 16. Yeah. Like that is absurd. And that is a team that wants to play high-paced in Notre Dame and a team in Texas who is perfectly content to go along with that. But they played, 11 people.
Yeah, 11 deep. Yeah.
They played more people for double-digit minutes than Notre Dame played, period. So that is really impressive to do that. And not just to do that, but to compete, to not have foul trouble completely take you out of the game. You did have 3 people that ended up with 4 fouls, but again, that's kind of the style of the game. And importantly, they never got the 5th foul, and that was with an extra 5 minutes. So I definitely am a little bit more encouraged. I maybe trust Notre Dame a little bit more for having seen that, especially the way that they played and needed to show a little bit more after their Thanksgiving tournament. They certainly showed it against Texas. It was really, really impressive what they did against Texas. And so then for UConn, okay, well, you're not going to have AZ Fudd. There's more updates out that, you know, there's other players that maybe they were hoping to get back at some point that don't seem to be in the timetable to return. You're not getting Ayanna Patterson back, at least for a little bit. She may be out again for an entire year with shoulder surgery. You just are still kind of struggling with that. And so there is a significant amount of depth there for UConn, but they've also been challenged a little bit less. They haven't lost yet. That's not to say they haven't gone against good competition, but they haven't been in a close game down to the wire. All of their wins have been by double digits. And again, that's over good competition. They've beat Louisville, they've beat Ole Miss, they've beat North Carolina. And so they've been up against good competition, but I do wonder how they will execute if this is a close game down the stretch, not having been in that position before and Notre Dame having done that so many times.
Yeah.
But, you know where Paige Beckers performs her best basketball?
Oh, for sure.
In the clutch. That's woman
for
has
sure.
in her veins. Like,
I don't worry about her.
No.
I do wonder about, you know, the fact that the second highest usage on the team is a freshman in Sarah Strong, where that really is the bulk of your post.
That's for my eyes.
You talk about them having an advantage in the post. Well, that's not something that they've proven beyond her at all.
Facts.
And that's no shade, but there's
fair.
not a lot of depth beyond there. And so someone like Liatu King, who does have, is maybe a little undersized, but has such significant experience, I think will be a big competitor. And I really would not be surprised at all if this comes down to an unexpected source, because I think you're going to have players with foul trouble. I think you're going to have players that just struggle against a very difficult type of team to play against, because that is both of them. UConn and Notre Dame both have such difficult styles of play to compete against. And so I think that they're going to be able to take a couple of typical sources out for either side. And so it's going to be, okay, Kate Koval, are you ready to step up to the plate? Okay, Sarah Strong, are you like ready to step into the big time? Hey, Caitlin Chen, you have experience. You've been in these moments before. Are you ready to maybe not score the big bucket, but maybe you're going to be the one really distributing because you do have such good vision. You do have such great composure. And so there's a lot of different sources it could come from. And I'm just excited to see who it ends up being.
Yeah, it's definitely UConn's like first big test of the season. So it'll be interesting to see like how that pans out.
Because they've been close-ish in the other tests. You know, it's been double-digit wins, but not 20 point
wins. If you watch, it's like one of those like where if you watch the game, like you could see like the Ole Miss game, like that third quarter, like it was like, whoa, what's going on here? You know, like there's been like
they've been in the driver's seat, but they never ran away with it. And so a really good team like Notre Dame would be ready to take advantage of that.
That's where like kind of the overtime foot to gas.
Yes.
Like we haven't really seen the foot to gas from UConn
to flip
yet.
the switch.
Yes. And so that is, and man, I can't wait. This is
I'm excited.
It's gonna be.
Notre Dame's games have been the ones I get most excided for this year, just because they put together such a good schedule and styles that are really fun to watch them compete against. And Hannah Hidalgo just makes me yell out loud.
She's gonna be on. She's gonna be on 30. She's gonna be on 30.
When she had that over the head assist against Texas, I literally was like, oh, like I'm sitting there because I don't watch on TVs. I have my multiple computer monitors so I can watch at least 3 games at a time, and so you know.
I do the same. Yeah, I be looking like I'm in the bat cave.
I have problems.
But no, this I think it's important to know as well. Like for UConn, just real quick before we move on, like this is they did. I will say they did just dominate Louisville. And like that is a very, very, very good one. So I don't want to look over that. But this is now starting a massive run of games for them in the non-conference. We know what UConn does in the non-conference when it comes to their scheduling. They'll still have some more big ones down the road, like with South Carolina in February. But they're now going to Notre Dame, then Georgetown, then they play Iowa State that's in Connecticut
on
but a neutral.
Tuesday at the Mohegan Sun.
So Connecticut but neutral. So and then they play USC in Stores. So like we are about to find out if we haven't felt like they have faced the test yet. Good Lord, it's finals week for them. The tests are on the way.
Exactly. And but I'd rather, and Notre Dame, like you were saying, and UConn are good for scheduling these very competitive non-conference things, because then in February, March, when you're winning stuff, you have that preparation, where I find other teams sometimes will just go against these teams that aren't giving them any competition just to be oh, we're winning. But I'm hey, you're winning against. And don't get me wrong, I don't know my schools very well, but you're winning against.
Don't worry, we don't know some of them either.
Exactly. So
that was messy. That was that was messy. That's on me. That's
you're not wrong.
You need to prepare yourself if you're one of these top ranked schools to play, in the tournament. If you want to get far in the tournament, you have to be ready for the moment. It's when you run a marathon, you're not trying stuff out at the marathon. You've practiced for however many things, right? So it's that can't be the first time you're in these situations. So anyway, lots of respect for them for making these big matchups, also so that we have stuff to watch, because it's incredible. Yep. But speaking of schools and things that don't really get talked about enough, Jamie, I'm going to throw it to you, because you have a little fun thing that we're going to do.
I do. This is something that I've been wanting to do for a couple weeks as I sort of figured it out, but we've had so much to talk about. But this week I wanted to throw something new in the mix. So we're gonna add a segment that I think will be recurring. And it's based off one of my favorite phrases that I like to use on shows, on podcasts in general, because I get a little bit into the weeds, okay? And so what we're introducing today is get ready to learn. And folks, this week, get ready to learn a couple of really great teams players here in the NCAA women's sphere. We're going to kind of highlight some teams that are flying under the radar, some players that are flying under the radar, maybe not getting as much shine as we think they deserve. And the metrics are completely up to us. So you got a problem with it? Take it somewhere else.
Make your own segment then.
Exactly, by all means. So mine, I'm gonna kick things off, and y'all have very easily found ones for yourselves as well. Even though I pitched this to you a couple hours before we recorded, so big props to you guys.
We're ready.
Mine is y'all get ready to learn Vanderbilt. Okay,
absolutely.
Vanderbilt 9-1. They are 18th in the Her Hoop Stats rankings, and so the Her Hoop Stats rankings don't deviate extremely from much of the AP poll. A lot of teams are within a couple spots. There are a few that are massively different, and one of them is Vanderbilt, because Vanderbilt isn't even the first team out of the AP poll. They're hovering around 30, which is crazy. They have not played an extremely difficult schedule yet, but they have completely, they've nearly demolished almost the entirety of their schedule.
You gotta watch the games.
So they've outperformed the prediction, we're talking the statistical models, whatever. The predictions for these games, in all but one of their 9 wins, they have just smashed them. Their one loss is to Montana, where they really just struggled, and one of the opposing players had the game of her life, went off for 24, had a great day. And so, especially when you have a young team, that's really important to learn early. And Vanderbilt is a young team. They have two players in the top 10 nationally for win shares. Both Michaela Blakes and Camille Pierre have 2.2 already, which is crazy. Blakes is the only freshman in the country currently averaging 20 plus points per game. Blake and Pierre are both averaging over 20 points per game, which makes them the only underclassmen duo in the country doing so, because Pierre is only a sophomore. So they have an extremely high ceiling. They don't have a ton of challenge as far as the non-con goes, but then they're going to go into the SEC, and just do not be surprised when all of a sudden you're hearing about the Commodores when they're going up against that elite SEC talent.
Yep.
Wait, what's their name? The Commodore? What's a Commodore?
That's a great question. I don't know what a Commodore is actually.
It's like like an Army. Like,
yeah, I think so, right? Yeah. It's I'm thinking of the mascot in my head.
Military adjacent.
Yeah, I'm thinking of like
the other thing that I know about Vanderbilt from movies and American media is that they have the singing people called like the Whippin' Poofs or whatever.
I don't know what that is. I think about Vanderbilt, and outside of the incredible hoopers that they have on their team, I think about their court setup, and it bothers me.
Oh,
I think about seeing them in Vegas last year and being like, wait, y'all are sleeping, because they were good then. No, they're good now.
They're really, really good. I also have a younger player that I want to highlight more on an individual basis rather than a team.
Wow, a theme that we have started.
Staley Hurd. Yeah, Staley Hurd from Oklahoma State. Let's get a little Big 12. Let me get back to my roots.
Thank you.
Get back to Oklahoma's own Staley Hurd. Let me get back to my roots a little bit. Look, last year, so Staley, she's a sophomore. It's been a bit of a weird start to the season for Staley, and I saw the vision last year, and the shot attempts just haven't really been coming on a very consistent basis game to game. This week, I don't know what changed, but she said to hell with it. She started shooting.
Good at Thanksgiving. She came back.
Shooting. So these might be 29. So she goes 29 and 10, 11 and 14, 7 and 7 from 3, and then follows that up with 32 and 10, 6 assists.
Woo.
With 8 of 11 from 3, 11 of 18 overall. Staley Hurd, shoot the dang ball and keep shooting it, because whatever you're doing, you are hooping. So this has been a player that I saw the vision last year, and I'm like, man, it's just kind of about that consistency.
She's so versatile. She can play every position.
Yes, absolutely. She can literally do everything. And now the 3-point shooting. This is we saw some threes, but not like this. Mm-hmm. Not like this. So to see it in this way in back-to-back games after it's been a bit of a weird start. This is a player that we're talking about against Central Arkansas, shot the ball 3 times. You got to shoot the ball. And when she shoots the ball like this, that's the type of player that can win you games off her strength alone.
Can I also say that she does all this? She's blind in her right eye.
Yeah.
That dropped late last year in the season in an interview, and everyone was like, "Excuse me?"
Mm-hmm. She doesn't have depth perception.
And it don't matter. She's
the
still
eye lets in light, so maybe she gets an ounce of depth perception. Besides that, no. Yeah, she plays with glasses to protect her left eye that does have vision.
Yeah.
It's absurd.
She
plays so
ridiculous.
hard. Because the Big 12 had crazy freshmen last year.
Mm-hmm.
She was one of them. She's so good. Oh my gosh.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's ridiculous. So that it's. I just hope that this is something that whatever happened this week.
Yeah.
Bottle it. And
keep looking for some of that.
This is what you need going forward, because Staley.
Do you need 11 threes every game? Maybe not, but if they're there, girl, you keep taking them.
If you're making it like that, I ain't gonna stop you.
If you just never miss,
I ain't gonna
stop you.
I am not gonna stop you. So yeah, Staley Hurd, bottle this up and keep doing your thing, because
except for not the first game of Big 12.
So sorry, but look. Keep doing your thing. I was already a fan, but this week you've been acting different. If you make this the norm, we're gonna have some different conversations about where Staley Hurd lies when it comes to sophomores across the country.
Yeah. And speaking of being a homer, we will now get to my pick. Y'all aren't allowed to roast me for being a homer because he picked someone from Oklahoma. So I picked someone.
Technically, it's the rival school, but that's okay.
Yeah, it's fine. So yeah, I picked Toby Fournier, of course. Oh, shocking. But let's talk about Toby, because obviously I knew what she was capable of when she went into college. She is a beast. She can dunk. She's very versatile everywhere on the floor. Against Virginia Tech, She scored 27 points, 9 rebounds. She also shot 12 for 17 from the field and didn't have any threes, even though she's starting to shoot them. She's made one this season. We'll work on it. But also, like, this season, especially being a freshman, and not just a freshman, but like some of these freshmen come and play high school in the States. That's the same with Sila Sword. Sila played high school. Like, Toby's coming to a new country and learning how to play like a very different style of basketball than gets played in Canada. Like, that's just the thing. Like, regionally, you just play different styles. And to the fact that now she's playing against like better competition. So the fact that, like, okay, she has a few like single digit, I think 4 single digit games out of her. I think I'm trying to count
11.
games here.
Yeah, probably 10 or 11. Yeah.
So she has 4 out of 11 games. She's only scored single digits, and the rest she scored double digits. She's starting to try and take those outside shots a little bit more. She's heavy on the glass, and is still like still has so much like room to grow. I think that she's someone that, I mean, don't get me wrong, Canadian media hasn't exactly been the best with promoting any of the Canadians, but I don't see her in Canadian media. I very rarely see her in the American media. I mean, I do follow the Duke basketball team just because, like, I follow anybody who has a Canadian. So I've seen them talk about her, obviously. They just had a big win against Virginia Tech. And yeah, I could see them going into conference play and her just getting more and more comfortable with that, you know, traditional, like, playing in the post. And she's so tall, and the more strength that she gets, the more I think she's just going to be able to be a powerhouse and be able to like crash the glass so much more. Because this is just her, like, you know, at base level right now. She still has so much to go.
And think about how, like, the team that she came into, where, like, Duke returned a good bit of experience from last year, but what they really lost was their size and their interior presence. And so all of a sudden you have this freshman who is a little lanky, like maybe a little bit raw in that, like you say, she's playing a new sort of style and stepping into this role that I don't think she's necessarily a 5 either. I think that if they had other post players, she would probably play the 3 or the 4, but she plays it really well. And not only that, but she's gotten so comfortable so fast. Like, she's 27th in the country in player efficiency rating. She's at a 38. Like, a 40 is absurd. And she's sitting at a 38. She's 11th in the country in points per 40 minutes. Like, what she does comes in less than 17 minutes per game. So I'm like super, super impressed with what she's done, stepping into a team that has the experience around her to kind of say, okay, make a mistake, we will help you afterward. I think that's really powerful. And that's something that Kara Lawson, I think, does really well.
Yeah. And I do think she reminds me of Asia Wilson in the sense that, like, Asia is very typically put in that 5 position and she still thrives, but like very much thrives being that like 4 forward, you know, not having to be that like tallest center right under the post kind of person.
Yeah.
So I do think that her game, like, obviously Asia is the best player in the world, and I'm not trying to make it person, but I do kind of see that in the sense of how we're talking about her, like, not necessarily playing her position right now. So, but I do think at the end of the day, it's going to help her be able to be more versatile on rosters when you think about her future in the WNBA and on the Canadian national team and et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, she's one that I'm like, you know, my Canadian freshman, we got to be talking about more because her and Sila should be in the conversation. Anyway,
I'm with you. I'll wave the flag with you.
That's why we're here.
I'll wave the flag with you. Yeah.
Oh man. So, wow. Again, we've almost yapped for an hour, which I think every week I'm like, oh wow, that's how much time has gone by. Absolutely. Again, packed week of stuff. I'm sure there's so many things that we didn't touch on that we wanted to, but luckily next week we will have so much more. There's going to be a lot of fun games. By the time we talk next week, Jamie's going to be on stores. So it's going to be a whole thing. Is that next week? I don't even know what date it is.
Uncasville. I'll be at the Mohegan Sun Casino. Yes.
There we go. Connecticut.
So hopefully I'll still have a couple pennies
live from the poker table.
By the time we talk. Ooh, that's
live
an
from
idea.
The poker table. It's press break.
That's in the casino. Yeah, the whole podcast.
That would be frowned upon. Maybe the slot machine though.
We'll just
in between takes, just gambling.
Let's go.
We do not promote gambling here on the press break.
Disclaimer. disclaimer. Use responsibly.
Yeah.
I don't know what the rules are in America.
I don't either. I don't gamble. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Is it 18 there? I don't know.
I won last time I went there, so I'm about to find those same machines, baby.
Let's go.
I came away $30 richer, okay?
Heat check.
Well, yeah, we will find out next week if Jamie is real and if she is going to share with us. So make sure to subscribe for that information specifically. But also for all the other great podcasts here on the Her Hoop Stats Network. For this week, I'm Chelsea, and of course we got Tyler and Jamie, and we will see you next time.